Welcome, everyone. Today, get ready for an exciting modern retelling of Oliver Twist. We all know and love the timeless classic by Charles Dickens. Now, in a fresh and contemporary adaptation, we bring you captivating characters and unexpected twists. Join us as we embark on this thrilling adventure and rediscover the magic of Oliver Twist.
Chapter 1 treats of the place where Oliver Twist was born and of the circumstances attending his birth. In a certain town, which for various reasons it would be wise not to mention, and to which I will not assign any fictitious name, there exists a public building among others, a workhouse, on a day and date that I need not trouble myself to repeat, as it holds no significance to the reader at this stage of the story. A child was born in this workhouse. Whether the child would survive to receive any name at all remained uncertain for a long time after its arrival into this world of sorrow and trouble, under the care of the parish surgeon. If the child had not survived, it is quite likely that these memoirs would never have been written. If they had, they would have consisted of a mere couple of pages, making them the most concise and faithful example of biography in the literature of any age or country. While I do not argue that being born in a workhouse is inherently the most fortunate and desirable circumstance for any human being, I do assert that in Oliver Twist's case, it was the best thing that could have happened to him. The truth is, Oliver faced considerable difficulty in taking on the responsibility of breathing, a troublesome practice that has become necessary for our daily existence. For a while, he struggled for breath on a small, unevenly balanced mattress, hovering precariously between this world and the next, with the scales tipping towards the latter. Had Oliver been surrounded by attentive grandmothers, concerned aunts, experienced nurses, and highly knowledgeable doctors during this brief period, he most certainly would have met an untimely demise. However, there was nobody present except for a poor, elderly woman who was slightly inebriated from an unusual indulgence in beer, and a contracted parish surgeon who attended to such matters. Oliver and nature engaged in a battle for his life. Ultimately, after some struggles, Oliver managed to breathe, sneeze, and alert the inhabitants of the workhouse to the fact that the parish had acquired a new burden by letting out a cry as loud as could be expected from a male infant who lacked the useful appendage of a voice, for a period slightly longer than 3 minutes and a quarter. As Oliver displayed this initial proof of the functioning of his lungs, the makeshift coverlet thrown carelessly over the iron bedstead rustled. The pale face of a young woman weakly rose from the pillow, and a feeble voice articulated the words, "Let me see the child and die." The surgeon had been sitting near the fire, rubbing his hands together for warmth. As the young woman spoke, he stood up and approached the head of the bed, surprisingly showing more kindness than expected. "Oh, you mustn't talk about dying yet," he said. The nurse quickly intervened, putting a green glass bottle, which she had been tasting in a corner with evident satisfaction, into her pocket. "Oh, bless her dear heart, no," the nurse exclaimed. "Bless her dear heart, when she has lived as long as I have, sir, and had 13 children of her own, and all of them dead except 2, who are with me in the workhouse, she'll know better than to take on in that way. Bless her dear heart. Just think about what it means to be a mother. There's a dear young lamb." However, this consoling perspective on the prospects of motherhood failed to have the intended effect. The patient shook her head and reached out for the child. The surgeon placed the child in her arms. She passionately kissed its forehead with her cold, white lips, ran her hands over her face, looked around wildly, shuddered, and then fell back and died. The medical staff tried to revive her by massaging her chest, hands, and temples, but her life had come to an end. They spoke of hope and comfort, but they had been strangers for too long. "It's all over, Mrs. Thingummy," the surgeon finally said. "Ah, poor dear, so it is," the nurse replied, picking up the cork from the green bottle that had fallen onto the pillow while she bent down to pick up the child. "Poor dear. You don't need to send the child up to me if it cries, nurse," said the surgeon, calmly putting on his gloves. "It's very likely to be troublesome. Give it some gruel if it is." He put on his hat and, pausing by the bedside on his way to the door, added, "She was a good-looking girl too. Where did she come from?" "She was brought here last night," the old woman replied, "by the overseer's order. She was found lying in the street. She had walked quite a distance, as her shoes were completely worn out. But nobody knows where she came from or where she was going." The surgeon leaned over the body and raised the left hand. "The same old story," he said, shaking his head. "No wedding ring, I see. Ah, good night." The doctor left to have his dinner, and the nurse, having taken another sip from the green bottle, sat down on a low chair in front of the fire and began to dress the infant. Young Oliver Twist was an excellent example of the transformative power of clothing. Wrapped in the blanket that had previously been his only covering, he could have been mistaken for the child of a nobleman or a beggar. It would have been difficult for even the proudest stranger to determine his social status. But now, dressed in the old, yellowed calico garments that had seen better days, he was labelled and categorized, instantly assuming his place as a parish child, the orphan of a workhouse, a humble, half-starved servant, destined to be pushed and mistreated in the world, despised by all and pitied by none. Oliver cried loudly. If he had known that he was an orphan, left to the mercy of church officials and overseers, perhaps he would have cried even louder.
Thank you for watching this chapter of Oliver Twist. More chapters are on the way, so make sure to stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe and press the notification bell to get instant updates when I upload new videos.